Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our scratch card design series into this single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, we're going to see how to design this scratch card effect using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So here we can see to view the code, we have to scratch over this card. And this is the effect that we're going to create using HTML, CSS and JavaScript in this video. And in the end, I'll also show you how to add this to your Blogger website. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So let's get started. So here we can see we have these rectangles over here, and if I drag over this area or if I scratch over this area, we can see that the code is revealed. So we're going to see how to create this using HTML, CSS and JavaScript in this tutorial series. And you can go ahead and pass different colors to these cards in the JavaScript, and you can get the cards with those colors over here. Now in this video, we will create the design using HTML and CSS, and in the next video, we will add the functionality using JavaScript. So let's get started. Alright, here I have created this folder called Scratch Card, and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's go ahead and create the necessary files. So let's click on New File, and let's create a new file called index.html. And let's also create a CSS file. I'll just name it style.css. And let's also create a JavaScript file. I'll just name it main.js. And let's start with the index.html file. So in VS Code, you can just type exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. And here in the head section, I'll just link the CSS file. So I'll just type link and press tab. And here in the href, I'll just type style.css. And here in the body, let's link the JavaScript file. So I'll just type script:/src and press tab. And here I'll just type main.js. Right now, let's start with the markup of our design. So the first thing we will do is we'll create a container division. So I'll just give it a class of main container. Now in this, we need to have this main heading. So let's create an h2 for that. And let's give it a class of main heading. And here let's add the heading. So I'll just type scratch to view code. Right now, the next thing we will do is we'll create this heading over here. So let's create an S3. And let's add this text over here. So I'll just copy this. And let's paste it over here. And after this H3, we need to create this scratch card. So let's create a division and let's give it a class of scratch container. And in this, let's create another division and let's give it a class of scratch card. And here in this division, let's create a division with a class of code, and let's add the code in here. So let's copy the code from here. And I'll just paste it over here. Right now we need to create a canvas so that we can add this scratching effect over here using JavaScript. So let's create a canvas. And let's give it an ID. And let's set the ID to scratch card 1. And we'll set the width and the height of the canvas. And let's set it to 300 for the width. And for the height, let's set it to 100. Right now, let's copy all of this. So we'll copy from this heading till here, and let's copy it 2 more times. And here for the second one, let's add this heading. So I'll just copy this and let's paste it over here. And for the second code, let's add this code right here. And let's paste it over here. And then for this canvas, let's give it an ID of scratch card 2. And then for the third one, let's go ahead and copy this heading and let's paste it over here. And let's go ahead and copy this code from here. And let's paste it over here, and let's change this ID to scratch card 3. Alright, so that's basically it with the HTML of our design, and let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you have this installed, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And now we can see that our design is displayed in the browser. Now let's go ahead and start with the styling. So let's go to the style.css file, and first of all, let's target the body. And let's set the font family to Montserrat, sans serif. And now let's go ahead and target the main container, which is this division right here. So let's type dot main container. And for this, let's give it a padding of 24 pixels top and bottom and 16 pixels left and right. And now let's target the main heading. So for the main heading, we have an h2 with a class of main heading. So here let's type h2.main heading. And first of all, let's set a border left. And let's set it to 4 pixels and solid. And for the color, let's type FF4460. And let's add a padding. And let's set the padding to 8 pixels top and bottom and 32 pixels left and right. And let's set the margin top to 0. And let's add a margin bottom. And let's set it to 42 pixels. Right now, let's style this heading. So this is an S3. So let's go ahead and type main container S3. And let's set the font weight to normal. Right now, let's style the Scratch container, which is this division right here. So let's type Scratch container. And let's set the width to 300 pixels and let's set the height to 100 pixels. Let's add a background color and let's see whether the width and the height is being added. So I'll just add light blue color. Right now, let's add rounded corners. So I'll just add border radius and let's set it to 10 pixels. Now let's go ahead and add a margin bottom. And let's set the value to 32 pixels. Right now, let's go ahead and style this Scratch card division right here. So let's go ahead and create a selector for that. So I'll just type Scratch card. And we'll just position this Scratch card division relative to this Scratch container. So here I'll just set the position to relative. And here let's type position absolute. And we need to set the left, right, top and bottom values to 0 so that it has the full width and height of the container. So for that, we can just type inset to 0. So now if you go ahead and add a background color, we can see that it has the full width and height of the container. And the border radius is not being added over here. So for that, you have to type overflow of hidden over here in the container. So let's type overflow hidden. And now we can see we have the rounded corners. Right, so let's go ahead and remove this background color. But now we need to bring this code to the center of this division. So let's set the display to grid and let's tap place items center. And let's go ahead and set the font size and let's set it to 24 pixels. And let's set the font weight. So let's set the font weight to bold. And let's add some letter spacing. So letter spacing value will be set to 2 pixels. And when we hover over this, we will have a different cursor. So for that, let's tap cursor. And we'll set the value to grabbing. And now we can see we have this cursor when we hover over this Scratch card. And I think with that, we have completed designing our Scratch card page right here. Now in this video, we will add the functionality of this scratching effect using JavaScript. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is we need to reference the canvas. So here we can see we have these canvas elements and we have this ID of Scratch card 1 for the first canvas. So let's go ahead and add the functionality for this first canvas and then we will add it to all the other canvases. So let's reference this Scratch card 1. So here let's type let canvas equals document dot, and since we have an ID, we can just type get element by ID. And here we can just add the ID. So I'll just type Scratch card 1. And then we need to create another variable for the context. So let's type let, and let's give it a name of context. And let's set it equal to canvas dot get context. And we need to set the context to 2D. Because this is a 2D effect. And then let's go ahead and create a function for initializing the colors. So let's tap const and let's name it init and let's create an arrow function over here. And here let's go ahead and type context dot fill style and we need to set it to a color. So for now, I'll just type red over here, and then we need to type context dot fill rect. So this will fill the rectangle with the color, and here we need to add these values. The first one is the x value, then we have the y value, and then we have the width and the height. So for the x and y, let's type 0. So we need to start it from this top left side, and then we need to type 300 for the width and 100 for the height. And now let's go ahead and call this function. So I'll just type init, and now we can see that we have this red color for this card. So now we can go ahead and delete this background color from here, and now we can see we have this background color for the card. And when we drag over this area, we will just erase this color. But now we need to create the functionality of dragging. So for that, let's create a variable first of all. And let's create a variable called isDragging. And let's set it to false by default. And now let's add some event listeners to the canvas. So let's type canvas dot add event listener. And first of all, we will add an event listener for mouse down. And here let's create an arrow function, and we'll get some value over here, and I'll just call it event. You can call this anything you want. And when we press the mouse down, we need to start the dragging process. So we need to type isDragging, and we need to set it to true. And then we need to go ahead and erase this color. So for that, we'll create a function, and I'll just call it scratch. And in this function, we need to pass the position of our mouse pointer. So we will get the position from event, which we are getting from here. And we can just type event dot offset x for the x-axis, and event dot offset y for the y-axis. Right now, let's create another event listener, and let's type canvas dot add event listener, and let's listen for the mouse move event. And here also we'll get some value. I'll just call it event. Now this mouse move event listener will be fired when we move the mouse around the screen. And when we move the mouse, we need to check whether we are dragging. So if we are mouse down and also mouse moving, then we need to call this function. So first of all, let's add an if conditional, and here let's type isDragging. So we need to check whether we are dragging, and if we are dragging, then we need to type scratch, and we need to pass this same value over here. So I'll just copy this code and paste it over here. And then we need to add another event listener. So let's type canvas dot add event listener, and we need to listen for the mouse up event. So when we are not pressing the mouse button, then we need to set the isDragging variable to false. So let's type isDragging equals false. And we need to do the same for the mouse leave event listener. So let's type canvas dot add event listener mouse leave, and here let's create an arrow function. And here let's type isDragging equals false. All right, now the last thing we need to do is we need to create this scratch function. So here, let's create the function. So let's type const scratch, and here we will get the x and the y values from here. So let's call it x and y over here. And now here the first thing we need to do is we need to set the context global composite operation, and we need to set it to destination out. So when we set the global composite operation of the context to destination out, then when we drag over this area, the color will be erased. Right now, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a circle shape. So here we can see we have the circle. So let's go ahead and type context dot begin path, and then we need to type context dot arc for the circle. And here we need to provide these arguments. We need to pass the x value, the y value, the radius, the start angle, and the end angle. So for the x and the y, we are getting it from here. So let's type x, y, and then we need to add the radius. So you can add any number over here. I'll just add 24. And then we need to add the start angle, and I'll just set it to 0. And then we need to add the end angle. And for that, let's type 2 times math.pi. So this will create a circle for us. And then we need to type context dot fill. Right now, the next thing we need to do is we need to go back to the style.css file, and we need to target all the canvas elements. And let's tap canvas. And we need to set the position to absolute. And now we can see that the code is not being displayed and the canvas is on top of the scratch card. So let's go ahead and see whether the scratch effect is working. So let's drag over this area. And now we can see that we are able to scratch and the color is being erased. Now we don't have the cursor set to grabbing. So let's go back to style.css file and let's cut this from here. And let's paste it inside the canvas. And now we can see we have the grabbing cursor. Right now, let's see how to add this effect for all these scratch cards. So let's go back to the main.js file. And we need to add all of this inside a function. So let's select all of this. Let's cut it from here and let's create a function and let's call it create scratch card. And let's create an arrow function. And let's paste all the code over here inside this function. And now we need to call this function and we need to pass two values over here. The first one is the canvas ID. So instead of hard coding this value over here, we will just get the value from this argument. So here I'll just tap canvas ID. And here let's tap canvas ID. So we'll get the canvas ID when we call the function. And we'll also get the color. So here I'll just tap color. And here instead of red, I'll just pass the color. So whatever color we provide in the function call will be added to the scratch card. Alright, now let's go ahead and call this function for each of the scratch cards. So let's tap create scratch card. And first of all, let's add the ID. So we have these IDs, scratch card 1, 2, and 3. So let's tap scratch card 1. And then for the second argument, let's give it a color. And for the first color, let's set the value to 006D77. And here we can see we have the first scratch card and the scratch effect is also working all right. So let's go ahead and call the function for the other two scratch cards. So I'll just duplicate this. And here for the second one, let's tap scratch card 2 and 3. And let's add different colors over here. So here I'll just tap 83C5BE. And then for the third one, let's type 8338EC. So here we can see we have all these scratch cards and we are able to scratch for the code. So that's basically how you can create this scratch card effect using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right here, I'm in the dashboard of my Blogger website and we can add this design to a post or a page. I'll just add it inside a post. So let's click on new post. And here I'll just add a title. I'll just tap scratch cards. And here the first thing you need to do is change this into the HTML view. So if it is in the compose view, click on this button and click on HTML view. Now here we can add the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. So first of all, let's add the CSS. So I'll just create a style tag for that. And in this style tag, we will add the CSS. So let's go back to our source code. And let's go to the style.css file and let's copy the CSS from here. Now we will not copy the CSS of the body because it will change the whole style of the theme. So let's go ahead and copy from this line of code till here. And let's paste it over here. And we will add this font family code. So let's copy it from here and let's add it inside this main container. Right now we also need to get the link of this font. So let's go ahead and go to fonts.google.com. Right, so here I'm in the official website of Google Fonts and let's search for Montserrat. And let's click on this font. Now we need to get some of these styles from here. So we need to get the bold version and I think this is the thin version. So let's get these two styles. So I'll just select light 300 for the thin version. And let's also select the bold version. So I'll just select bold 700. And here we have these two styles selected. Let's go over here to import and let's copy the code from here to our CSS. So here let's go to the start of the CSS code and let's paste the code over here. Now these fonts will be imported from Google Fonts and added to our website. Right, now let's go ahead and add the HTML. So let's scroll down and let's go outside the style tag. And let's go back to our VS Code. And let's go to the HTML file and let's copy this HTML from here. So let's copy from this line of code till here. And now the last thing we need to do is add the JavaScript. So let's go ahead and create a script tag. And let's go back and let's go to the main.js file and let's copy this JavaScript from here. And let's paste it over here. Now here we can see that we have all this code. So you need to make changes over here. So here we can see this is the heading which we see over here at the top. And then we have all these S3 for all these smaller headings. And you can go ahead and change these to your needs. And then we have the code over here inside this code division. So you can add your coupon code over here. And then if you go to the main.js file, here we can see that we are passing the color for the scratch cards. So for the first one, we are adding this color. So we have a different color for the first one. So in this way, you can add any color over here. So if I just change this to, for example, red, now we can see we have this red scratch card over here. So in this way, you can go ahead and change these values to your needs. And if you go back to the HTML, here we can see for each of these canvas, we have these IDs. So for the first one, we have scratch card 1, and then we have 2 and 3. So you have to pass these IDs over here when we call the function. So we are calling this function called create scratch card. And here we need to pass the ID of the canvas and the color. So that's basically all the changes you need to do. And here in the style.css file, you have all these styles. So you can change these to your needs. Right, so let's go back and let's go back to our post and everything is all set. Let's click on publish and confirm. And now here we can see we have this scratch cards post. Let's open this. So let's click on view. And here we can see we have the scratch cards displayed. And if you scratch, we can see that the functionality is also working correctly. Now the color of this text is not black. So let's go back and let's do that. So here for the main container, I'll just type color. And let's set the color of all the text to black. And let's click on update. And let's refresh this page. And now we can see we have this black color over here. Now the main heading is not being displayed. So this main heading over here. So let's right click and let's see what's the problem. Let's go to inspect. And let's open the main container. And here we have this h2. And here we can see for the h2, we have some problems. So let's scroll down and let's see what's the problem. So here we can see that we have the main heading class in the theme also. So here it is setting the height to 1 and the width to 1. So all these values that you see over here are interfering with our heading. So let's go ahead and change the class so that the problem is solved. So let's go back. And here for the main heading, I'll just change this to, let's try my heading. And here in the HTML also, I'll just change this to my heading. And now let's go ahead and update this. Let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see that the heading is being displayed. I think we can increase the font weight a little bit. So here we can see that we are getting 300 and 700. Let's go back to fonts.google.com and let's go back to Montserrat. And here we can see we have 300 and let's go ahead and select regular 400. So here instead of 300, I'll just change this to 400 and let's update this. Now let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now I think it looks all right. So with that, we have completed adding the scratch cards to our Blogger website. Right, so that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below, and I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.